Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for a conversation with Dr. Joseph Rios on one of the learning and development trends for 2026, which is a focus on soft skills, resilience, and workplace wellness. I'm your host, Brenda McNabb, VP of Service and Development at Clarity Consultants, where we've spent over 30 years serving many of the world's most successful organizations by providing everything from elite project-based consultants to large-scale managed learning services solutions. A recording of the webcast, which will be 45 to 60 minutes long, will be available on the Clarity Consultants website and YouTube channel. You're welcome to submit comments and questions into the chat feature at any time if you're inclined. You can also include where you're joining us from today, your title, the company you're currently with, any or all of that. So our guest today holds a PhD from Stanford and has served multiple elite academic institutions and Fortune 500 companies, including Google. He is a multilingual, cross-cultural workplace communications expert who has worked extensively with global talent. He has extensive experience creating and delivering training on soft skills, communication, leadership, and much more. He also has extensive professional coaching expertise, collaborating with individual contributors all the way to senior executives, targeting professional skills development. I would like to welcome Dr. Joseph Rios, whom I will be referring to as Joe today. Joe, welcome, and if I missed anything about your background.
Hello, Brenda. No, that was a beautiful introduction. I mean, that was thorough, and that
Thank
sums it
you.
up. I can definitely identify with all that. Thank you for having me, and I'm very excited to be here to talk about so-called soft skills, which I don't think are soft. They're actually quite hard to learn, and I'm going to kind of give my perspective on that as we go ahead today. So, thank you for having me.
That's fantastic, Joe, and we're so thrilled to have you here. You have such a unique perspective because you've lived all over the world, you've worked with so many different people. The intercultural thing and the cross-cultural thing is really interesting. At its heart, though, we are talking about the human as we adapt to the current situation. So my first question would be, what is it in the current world? What are the challenges and dynamics that are making the learning and development industry make this one of their priorities this year?
Well, in a nutshell, stress, anxiety, I think a few different things. If you take AI, it's putting pressure on all of us to move faster. Some of that heavy lifting that we've all been used to
Yeah.
for so many years is disappearing. So we're freed up to do other things. So we're being asked to do more things. Everything's just moving faster to market. There's so much going on. Timelines, of course, have been moved up, and visibility as well. We're all more visible now. Our visibility is increasing. We used to maybe be behind the scenes doing a lot of work for several days, but now we're more present because we have a little less work. It's the paradox, right? We have more time for other things. I think the fact that we're having to make decisions under uncertainty.
Mhm.
So this is an
Yeah.
interesting thing I see, right? Because prediction is becoming, the marginal cost of predictions on, zero. So predictions everywhere. We have such great information now, and it's given to us quickly. It's quite thorough, but we still have to make the decisions. I think we should at least be making
Yeah.
the decisions, right? Not ChatGPT or whatever, or AI, but as we go through that, we have more stuff, more options, and then, it's coming at us faster. And so, how do you, in that context, remain resilient,
Hmm.
manage your wellness, and then to what degree do quote unquote soft skills, which I think are very hard things to learn, as I said, come into play? And so that's kind of the way I see it. So really, how do people stay clear and calm and effective in that context? That's the big question. So the ability to perform well under pressure, and that, in a nutshell, is the definition of resilience.
When we saw the four major trends come out through a few really reputable sources at the beginning of the year,
Mhm.
some of the things were learning in the flow of work, obviously AI fluency. There was a lot that were related to technology. So I was quite pleased to know that,
Mhm. Mhm.
resilience and workplace
Mhm.
wellness were not being lost in the mix. It's been recognized. because it
Mhm.
directly relates to
Mhm.
performance and retention from a strictly business perspective. But what do you think from an individual contributor role is one of the areas of soft skills that is most important to focus on if we're taking them one at a time here?
Okay, well, the first thing, hold that question, but I want to add one thought that I
Yeah.
think just to reframe a little bit what you just said in 2026 and reading that literature you said, and from my experience, things like wellness and resilience. I mean, these have been for a long time in the soft skills category as sort of, if you need them, if you can get them, it's great. I mean, if you can get that kind of training, if you can have the budget for it, it's kind of like let's do it. But it's not a have to. It's never really been a have to, and I would argue now that it is. That it's a must have. In fact, I'd say it's a performance skill in and of itself. And yes, I'd like to get into that
Wow.
today. But I
Yeah.
think resilience is something that we're not talking enough about. And as one of the soft skills, now to answer your question, uh, I'm going to put it in that category.
Yeah, for sure.
Resilience has just been this thing like wellness. It's just these things that, you need to have them. You kind of adapt as you go. You're under pressure. It's kind of like a vibe. You got it, you don't have it. Just deal with it, right?
Yeah.
But I would argue with onboarding and any kind of sustainability for an employee at work, you really have to both train for and measure and support their wellness and everything that has to do with uh, this concept of taking care of the employee at the level of can they handle all this change and the dynamic that they're faced with. This is probably the most difficult. It's uncharted water, and so
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
your onboarding has to really prepare someone for what is a process that we're undergoing at work that no one is really clear about, but it's got a lot of pressure and time constraint. So, are you flexible enough to handle that? Yes or no? How do you train someone to be flexible like that? Like the other day, I lost my car key, and you can just walk through all that process.
Yeah. Been
How do
there.
you right? We've all done this, whatever it is, any small thing like. But at work, it's magnified. And if you're a younger employee, how are you resilient under that pressure? So, this whole concept of resiliency and wellness is really they're intertwined, and it's something that we have to prepare our employees for and ourselves for more than ever because we've got to make the decision, but we're under more pressure than ever. This is my opinion.
Yeah. Yes. The resilience and adaptability piece, and then the standards have really gone
Mhm.
up with the use of technology
Yes,
and the
expectations,
capabilities.
right?
That's another thing. And I can see that it puts a lot of pressure on leaders. And I wonder how, because if we're trying to, and we can talk about measuring later a little, maybe in a little more
Mhm.
detail, but
Mhm.
if you're trying to tap into how your people are doing around these types of things,
Mhm.
how does emotional intelligence, for example, as a leader, feed into, when people are needing something or performing well or when they're not being resilient? How do you, it's your community, it's your expertise in communication.
Yeah, I think emotional intelligence is just fundamental to everyone's well-being and resilience in the workplace. Without EQ, without a good sense of self-awareness, the ability to recognize yourself under stress, to be aware of what's triggering you, to have that self-awareness first, and then the ability to know what to do with that and stay on course. This is the real art of management and managing up as well. As you know, overreaction doesn't we don't benefit from that. So if you're a leader, I think you have to really have this sense of patience, and patience is expressed as most visible in your ability to listen. If you hear see this all over the literature. It's talked about more than ever, but it's very underserved as a training topic because it's hard to do. It's like, okay, let's have an hour training on listening. All right, I'm going to talk. It's very hard to design something like that, but not really. because in the reason I bring this up is because in listening, I mean, it's the Archibald example of EQ, that is to say self-awareness. You have to, instead of wanting to finish the other person's sentence or actually disagree at any moment, you restrain from that. You actually let go of what you're thinking, and we know this in things like improv. One of the great things about improv is that you don't think about what's coming next. You just let go. Listening is a lot like that. You just let go, and you
Mhm.
listen to the person, and then whatever comes back is what you process rather than evaluating when they're talking. So emotional intelligence runs through listening, and listening is the greatest leadership skill I have seen developed in leaders, where the ones who reach this point of kind of the magnanimous leader, the thoughtful leader, the empathic leader, didn't get there just by being nice. They got there because they actually learned to listen, repeat back what they hear, affirm that for the listener, build trust, credibility, as they talk about, in the seven habits of great leaders right, Covey's second chapter there, I think. But just talking about how you seek first to understand, then to be understood, and that whole concept, that's a lot of work. And the leaders I've seen do that, and I've helped them, they're so calm under stress. So they know when they're being triggered, and then they kind of fall back on great listening skills, and then they come out on the other side and they're actually calming themselves in that process. It's quite beautiful to watch as listening. They're taking it in because what they're doing is they're going to do the second thing that's critical. They're going to acknowledge and validate what that other
Mhm.
person says without any kind of evaluation. And then they move to dialogue. And this whole sort of training nexus is critical to leadership and coaching at all levels, whether it's one-on-one, group coaching, whatever.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we wanted to cover today and certainly get your thoughts on is what is effective and what's not effective. And there is a sway towards experiential learning, which essentially is practicing. So I would ask, what have you seen in the classroom that works well around developing these skills, and even more than that in your coaching, because you
Hmm.
you started talking about self-awareness and then listening. Where do you get to practice those things? I guess just walking through life, you could practice them.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, but
we bring like,
how does
yeah.
a learning and development leader create a program that's going to help with this? Is
Well,
it
yeah,
coaching?
it's fundamentally experiential. There's one thing is there's a talk about the theory about what you need folks to learn. You need a common vernacular. That's a given. We have to speak the same
Oh,
language about the topic.
right.
That's fundamental. But then for sustainability, real learnability, it's practice, as you said. So
Mhm.
the practice starts in those training sessions. I don't do anything that's not interactive, essentially, unless it's truly something that's been agreed upon with the company I work for or the individual. But then it really gets into interactive activities, and that's the fun for me as a trainer, as a coach. I know many of your folks on the call are either former teachers or have had their foot in training and coaching, and
Sure.
that's the fun stuff is curriculum and writing and content and moving the pieces. I come from a language background, language learning background, and everything there is sort of like how can you figure for the different learning modalities in the room that they can all latch onto something. Some are more auditory, some are more visual. So you got to meet everybody's needs. So this is the fun thing, is that beef of the training itself. But then for sustainability, you need some kind of either a micro coaching program where sort of like a train the trainer, coach the coaches kind of model, and then or one-on-one coaching for the high potentials. But there's got to be something so that they can practice further. And in my experience with coaching is especially in the world of communication and so-called soft skills, um, it takes time, and we don't realize how much time it takes because it to really improve your communication, you have to build your confidence beyond a level that you maybe have
Mhm.
never experienced before. And here's the good news. It's like riding a bicycle. Once you're up, you're never going to forget.
Yeah. So starting with confidence, and that sort of brings us back to resilience because we have to be resilient around receiving feedback um, from those around us, right?
Oh,
from,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, resilience, if you want to, I mean, this is a good chance to kind of go into resilience because I think it's, like I said, now it's a skill. It's not just it'd be great to have kind of thing. It's a skill that we have to develop in everyone. So I would encourage anyone on this call to start thinking about resilience programs, resilience training. But if you think about resilience, what is it really? It's your ability to bounce back, your ability to continue forward. But there's a lot in there. It really starts with kind of a cognitive level. Like you really have to stop and think about the first moment, which is that awareness, again, EQ, to be able to stop and say, okay, what story am I telling myself about what's happening? You take a captain ship
Mhm.
on a ship. He's out
Yeah.
in the ocean, whatever, somewhere, and the stormy weather hits. And this is not good. And maybe this is the biggest storm he's ever seen, right? So what does he tell himself? Well, whatever that self-talk is, it's a question of him stopping to just it's acknowledging, stopping to think, what am I? Ask the question. Stop and just say, "Well, what am I thinking right now? What am I doing?" Because there's
Mhm.
always two guys up here, two people up here.
Right.
One's like just watching it, or the other one, we know. The other one's just uh, chatting on about whatever. And it's that chatter you want to focus on. So that ship captain's going, yeah, well, the story I'm telling myself is this could be lethal. We could all go down here. And you can imagine what that could lead to. There's that
Hmm.
emotional reaction. So then you look at the reaction. What is your reaction going to be? And is it going to be panic? And this is where communication comes in. It becomes really interesting because you see this at work. Uh, People start overreacting. It's fight or flight, and their communication skills go out the window because they get all stressed out. And the quiet person goes quieter, the talkative one chatters more, etc. So the captain on the ship to return, he's got this ability then to calm the water, so to speak, of his brain and say, okay, I've been through this before. I've seen maybe not this bad, but I've done it. And then you go to action. And that
Hmm.
action piece is really the behavioral. I call it behavioral agility.
Hmm.
That agility then says, okay, what's my purpose here? Let me calm down and get back to what I was doing, which is I got to get this boat to port. In other words, all this interference and noise is going to derail your ability. It's going to make it worse, your ability to navigate the boat, the ship. So if you can calm that noise and go forward, that's resilience, is that three-step process. So it's this ability to to be aware and then eventually reframe to be able to say, okay, this is uh I see this in people with meetings all the time. Like someone will uh especially younger managers, they give a presentation and then
Hmm.
they get criticized either directly in the meeting, taken on challenge, or later, or sort of through gossip. They hear that people didn't like it or whatever. And what's the first thing they do? Especially
Shut down.
well,
I'm
yeah,
gonna get shut.
especially the global
Yeah.
talent I work with. They panic and they'll
Right.
say, "Oh, it's my English, or it's my background," or they could go into farther extreme imaginings, like it's the ceiling and all these things, and all of those might be possible, but they kind of get lost down there. This is a huge opportunity to learn reframing and train reframing. What
Hmm.
else could be going on that could be going on? What could and you reframe to say something like, yeah, well, this is an iteration. I'm learning to give it. I'm going to take the feedback. I'm going to ask for feedback. They actually got feedback, let's say, from their boss. That wasn't too good. That's all it is. It's feedback. I learned that's resilience because you're
Hmm.
taking it in, you're not going emotional. So resilience is kind of the anti-emotion, the antidote to losing that emotion to fight or flight. And then finally you can actually go back. Like I said, you're disruptive. Then you go back to what you were trying to do. You know what to do. You're really good at what you do. You're the expert.
Yeah.
You just had a presentation where you got to learn more. And
Yeah.
and so I don't know if this is making sense because
No, it is. It
I'm
is for
on my
sure, and
soapbox because I love this topic. That's
yeah,
why.
resilience training or learning how to be resilient always
Mhm.
starts with a difficult situation or something that didn't go right.
Right.
So understanding, when we live in a world where you shouldn't be making any mistakes, and the deadlines are getting moved up 25% with the assumption that you're getting that much more
Mhm.
productivity out of AI, and uh,
Mhm.
there's all of this.
Right, right.
So
And to add to that, Brenda, it's all about back to EQ,
yeah,
really understanding what your triggers are. What triggers you in particular? What are those workplace situations? Um, and so that's why I kind of like to do, apart from if you just take the model of sort of the three dimensions I was talking about, sort of the cognitive sort of part, and then the sort of the emotional and behavioral. That's what I was trying to frame for you. Sort of, we have the cognitive part, the emotional, and then the behavior, our action and reaction. If you look at that, there's lots of things you can do. I like to do, if you don't mind, I can share some of the things I do. Um,
love it. I
uh,
love to hear it. Yeah, for
yeah, yeah.
sure.
Well, sometimes I just try to get folks to think about keep kind of a track their what triggers them to look
Mhm.
at very simply in a journal. Just I do this with my international group. Um, what's really getting under your skin? Why is that? What's happening there? And then what's the narrative that you create about yourself under that? And then what is it that you could do uh, differently? I have this course called Brave Speak, and Brave Speak is all about this. It's about you having the courage to say something, but you can't say anything unless you have the tools. And one of the tools is you got to think it through. That gives you the confidence to be brave with the tool in your hand because you know how to use that weapon to get what you need. It's a process. You got to dig really deep. This is why for L&D, I think it's very important to unpack all of these things. It's so easy to give a high level training and not give the how-to in great detail. And that how-to is learned best through experience, through talking about your personal experience, but not just that, then having an activity to work it out. And not just a one-off day on a training on Friday for 4 hours. I'm talking about
Mhm.
something that can be sustained throughout the year, either
Yeah.
internally or from the outside.
Yeah, it strikes me, sort of reflecting on myself, that I don't believe that I became resilient until I, hit a certain number of, sessions around the sun, as they say. So I think if
Sure.
we
Hmm.
can't be lightweight on it and say that this is something that we're going to go through a learning program and somehow you're going to
Hmm. Hmm.
become like hyper resilient. I mean, and there's also people who are just born a little more resilient,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
certainly very
Are you
important.
familiar? Are you familiar at all with, I think her name is Anne, I think her name is Anne Maston for everybody who'd like to look her up, Anne Maston. She writes about resilience, but she wrote this great book called, I think it's called Everyday Magic is the book, Everyday Magic. And she brings up this great point about how, you know, it, we're all resilient. We know what to do. And it's happening all day long. We do know how to do it. Like, for example, that person I was describing who had the bad day at work and gave this presentation was shut down by everyone getting criticized for how she was presenting. Or so I don't know what it was. I don't remember the client, but she went out and talked to a good friend. And what did her good friend do? Helped her calm those waters
Hmm.
and help her reframe and look at it differently. And that person was refreshed and came back to work the next day and was stronger and went out and did it again.
Right.
So,
It's a
so
process.
yeah, well, and it's systemic. It's an open system, systems
Right.
thinking.
Right.
It's not just all these vectors are happening. One thing's affecting, but communities build resilience. So that's a message to a training as well. It's not just, these individuals in the training room. It's the whole system that needs to
Mhm.
develop a resilient mindset, I think.
I've got a question for you that I think you would know a lot about. What is this obsession with perfectionism? Um, do you come across that a lot? The need to be perfect. Um, you know,
Boy, well, that's an understatement. I see it everywhere. I see it everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, every level of employee. Just and it's secretive. Folks don't admit it. Folks don't know it. They're not self-aware of that. I know I've lived through it.
Mhm.
I think anyone who's on this call probably knows what that means. But I think there are shades of it, and I think there again the awareness, your own awareness of that, and the roots of it are very important to work through. But that aside, to answer your question, I see it a lot with foreign talent,
Mhm.
where because in their educational systems around the world, it's very hard to get to the top in general. In some cases, probably a lot harder than here due to the
Mhm.
examination systems around the world. And so, yes. So I think I was just reading a comment there. I'm agreeing with MP there, Monty.
Yeah.
I think yeah, and I think around the world you just see this pressure. But that's just part of it. There's the cultural element of perfection, which is
Mhm.
it seems like perfection, but it's not. What you'll see in Asia, for example, is something we call face. And keeping face is very important. It's complex nexus of things. Again, it's very systemic, but you don't just interrupt people and say things and do like we do and be very direct because you could potentially damage not just your face but someone else's face.
Mhm.
It's a very
Wow.
important thing. People think it's just, oh, I got to protect my. No, you don't want to offend them. That is to say, you don't want to put someone on the spot because that just does that upsets part of that system, which is all about harmony.
Mhm.
So what matters more than you is your responsibility to harmony. So you can't just go and ask for what you want and be everything. So you're speaking up is very contextualized. If you're talking down perhaps to a report, it's different. But if you're there with the people above you and laterally, then you got to be very careful how you speak within that cultural mindset. So
Right. So
right,
you prepare people to come into a more, I would say, fluid, flatter situation. Like when you were at Google, it's pretty flat when you're trying to solve problems in a conference room. They want to hear from everyone, and
that's right. That's right. And that's where all this comes into play, soft skills, resilience, communication, all this stuff, EQ, because in flat systems, this more, kind of low context, cultural context, uh, you just got to move and fast. And what do you say? What do you want? You need help, you ask for it. But all that stuff are huge blockers for the non-native speaker, especially, or shy people or whatever. But the idea of you you have to be harmonious and stay in your place as perceived by this very deeply rooted mindset you have from thousands of years, or at least a long
Mhm.
time, through your parents at least, that
Yeah.
says, to do otherwise is inappropriate, and not only that, potentially dangerous. So,
Yeah.
back to that point is, I see that folks that I work with in biopharma, in finance and stuff, the higher up they go, the much more careful they are to open their mouth. And they're
Yeah.
terrified to make a mistake because they don't want to look bad. They don't want to look. The word, it's not that. It's face, but it's more than that. It's they don't want to look like they can't represent the company, that they're not qualified, that they're not adequately prepared. It goes very deep in their sense of self-confidence and self-worth and identity around intelligence, tied to a category, a label of a job. You're VP, so that's it. You don't make mistakes like that, right? So if that makes sense
Right.
to you.
Yeah, I know. I noticed a lot of the leadership programs talk about leading up. I'm sorry, maybe I'm not saying it right.
Managing up, whatever. Yeah.
Managing up. That's it. Thank you. Leading up. But yeah, that it's a lot of it is, yeah, people not understanding how difficult it is to be a leader, and that is strikes me during this conversation, just how much more difficult it has become to do that. So I'm just looking to
Yes.
see if we have any questions here
Yeah, please,
in the
please.
chat. I didn't see any, but maybe I'm missing it. And I love welcome everyone again, and good to see the comments here, and would love any questions that come in. I did want to ask you one question about measurement. And it's okay because we're at a moment within talent development where the business outcomes of investments within L&D and other things, coaching, et cetera, uh, executives are wanting to see the ROI on that. And now we have increased technical capabilities to do that, but it's still been an evolving science. So I would just wonder how you measure resilience, and I mean, we can talk about wellness as our capper, but is there a way to do it? How do you do it?
That's a really fantastic and very difficult question to answer. And I think that falls into the whole category of measuring soft skills. And of course, there's the
Yeah.
there's the reporting. You're the person you report to. This is where I get most of my feedback. Is your manager will notice a difference and they will document it, and it shows up in your performance review. But that
Okay.
is, but that's not the ROI question. That doesn't answer to matter. Why would I buy, your services, Joe?
Right.
That doesn't sell very well. But that is one of the metrics I tend to show, and I have to work off past clients and show that data, my success stories and so on. So there's all of that data. Um, there is the fact that we can look at promotion rates. I've done that a lot. I mean, again, this is more anecdotal. This is my world that I work
Mhm.
off of. Um, in terms of a large scale process, I'm sure folks on your call have experience with this, some of the directors on the call. Um, but I think that shouldn't be an impediment. That should not be a reason not to do two things. One is to find that metric at all
Mhm.
cost, because this is an imperative. I can't
Mhm.
say this enough. If we cannot
Yeah.
be resilient in these, especially I'm worried about the younger generation,
Yeah.
uh,
Sure.
younger employees. So helping them understand this, I think the framing has to be in that context of you can have the learning exam, the whole sort of we can test your understanding cognitively. What did you understand from this? Do you understand? But I think you
Mhm.
incorporate that and you embed that into right. You embed that into to performance review. You put it into the performance review. How resilient is this employee and scale it somehow. And
Right. It's
and you work back from there. Resilience has to be a skill. It's a performance skill. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to say it, but it's got to be
yeah.
included on the famous list.
Sure.
Leaders
Sure.
as well. How resilient? Because it's synonymous with your ability to have emotional intelligence. It's synonymous with your ability to communicate uh, properly,
Mhm.
humanely under pressure. This
Yeah.
is this is where my work is just getting asked all kinds of giving really interesting projects because folks are seeing that their managers are under a lot of pressure and they just don't know how to say things because again this is back to the other point I was making. It's the devil's in the details. It's not just the theory, but it's the
Mhm.
practice at saying the right thing. uh, it's truly an art at that point. That you've got your ideas formulated, you know what you got to do, you've conquered your fear, you're ready to go. But are you structuring the words, and you can't just rely on an LLM to do that for you, even though it has beautifully written syntax. No, you've got to find your own way with your
Mhm.
body language and so on that communicates the right idea. And that's where the great leaders live. They have this knack because they really understand the person they're talking to because they've listened to them and watched them. They
Mhm.
acknowledge their situation, their thinking, but then they join in with, how about this? And it's about, how about that? Have you thought of this? It's much more a coaching model. So I'm mixing things up here, but I just think
Yeah.
that to assess this
Sure.
really starts with a commitment to it as looking at it as a skill that needs to be developed in everyone we work with, all of us.
So I'm just noticing a few comments over
Sure.
here, which is a concern that, we're instead focusing on resilience and how you respond to all this pressure as opposed to
Sure.
looking at the pressure and then
Okay.
saying, oh, we'll throw a little wellness program on there, like we'll have yoga.
Mhm.
available to you, or ideas or mental health outreach opportunities, and not adjusting the machine to be more human friendly. And certainly to look at individual differences and have the same expectations. So, uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was a question or not, but I know that
yeah.
wellness, as I said, I think I would put wellness in the same priority level. They're
Mhm,
intertwined. Under that kind of stress, I think wellness is more critical than ever. And I think all those programs are great. I thought it was one of the things that saved me when I was working at Google to
mhm,
know that, you had a massage chair, or you could take a yoga class, you could have anything you needed to just
sure.
break the stress. And also because it was a flat organization, you were responsible for your work, not to report up or down all the
Mhm,
time. You're not being watched. It's not
right.
seat time. So there's a lot of room, great food, all that sense
Yeah.
healthy food, that you were prepared and you could take care of yourself, your self-care. So many folks I talk to right now, I'll say this, are living with a health debt at work, a health
Yes.
debt, and they're running out of credit. And I notice this with a lot of women with children, uh,
Hmm.
husband working, a lot of them in startups and things, and they're just losing it because they can't find that balance apart from quitting.
Hmm.
I hope that addresses some of that question that someone's raising.
Yeah, yeah. Indeed, indeed. And I've heard the expression, you need to cultivate healthy work habits. And so that's, I think, very important. I don't think people take the time to do that. And they're afraid to show some sort of weakness, or slow in getting things back, and or meeting deadlines, or getting things over, or responding, in particular in the world of IM. And there's so many communications coming at us at once. You don't respond in half an hour, and all of a sudden people are
Right,
crazy,
right.
because we're so intertwined that it's a domino effect. Like, I need to talk to you to solve this problem in order to go forward with my work, which brings up the other thing that I've noticed. And of course this relates to AI, is everyone's being asked to be, not everyone, but many people are asked to be strategic thinkers now, as opposed to just sort of tactically doing something. And that's because AI is being harnessed in so much of what we do. What do you do with it? So one of my pet peeves is when we're ideating about something, and somebody generates this uh, idea using AI, and doesn't take the time to pare it down, but sends it out to three or four people, like, yeah, without the prompt or whatever. And so now all of a sudden I have 6 pages of ideas to go through. And
Mhm.
so what that does to me on a personal level is my stress goes up, because there are so many different ways of interpreting this. And what was put into the machine in the first place, where are the raw notes? So it's almost like an etiquette thing that I'm hoping gets addressed with AI, and is being addressed more, because there are a lot of leaders that will just send something over to individual contributors who are busy all day long, and ask them to, hey, why don't you take this and then go do that with it? It's like, well, what part of this do you want? What don't you want? They don't take the time to look at it, but they think they did something. So, sorry, pet peeve,
Well, yeah, so
airing of the
Brenda,
grievances
Brenda,
there.
what
But
what is your point there exactly? Because I think you're onto something very important there. And if you don't mind bringing up the AI sort of generated
yeah,
responses issue that's burning everywhere for all of us. I think Deborah just mentioned it right there. It's a starting point. But this goes.
yes, thank you.
I, yeah, I'd like to tie it to the
Yeah.
idea that, see, if AI is able to predict so quickly, so many options for us,
Hmm.
we have to still take the time to decide which one is appropriate, and that could mean a lot of things. But one thing is you've got to bring yourself back in instead of relying on this thing to do all of the decision making. Let it do the thinking, give you the thinking options, the best thinking that's
Exactly.
out there in the world. But
Critical
then,
thinking piece.
yeah, yeah, help you be your critical thinking partner. But then it's up to you not just to discern which is the best way to go, but to muck around with it again and say, okay, this is not. what I want to say. This is not what I think. This really, are you sure that you can ask questions, of course. We all do that with AI, but it's more than that. You go to this next place of really saying, when you got something, you can before you email it, you're saying, am I really behind this? And very
Yeah,
often we're not because we're in a hurry. We're just sending the
right.
best version we got from it.
Exactly. And then what is
Is
that
that?
doing? That is throwing like a cherry bomb into someone else's day. And so when, I think back, I'm like, even like 5 years ago, like when would I get like a 6-page thing from an executive or from somebody I'm working with and ideating? 6 pages of all this detailed stuff based on a prompt is like, here's my ideas.
Yeah.
So I
Yes.
don't know if anybody else is dealing with this, but I assume they are. And so I guess I'm talking about AI etiquette, which is an interesting
Yeah.
thing that needs to be addressed, probably as part of
Yeah, yeah.
governance and how
It's another
companies use it,
conversation. Right,
for
right.
sure. But
And it's a soft skill category thing as well. It's sort of communication and writing.
yeah.
And it seems like it's so easy now. You just kind of you can rely, and it's true. We can just knock out an email in a second. But are we creating a new problem for someone else by sending them something that isn't really accurate in the sense that it doesn't really fix the problem that they're trying to fix because it we didn't vet it properly. That's what I hear you
So
say.
now we're talking about not only becoming AI fluent, but now there's this whole other piece of it is what are you doing this whole other side? What do you do when somebody's sending you
Well,
all this AI
I
stuff?
call it I call it actual intelligence. Um, if we're going to
Yeah.
use
Oh, I
AI,
like
I
that.
think we need to have actual intelligence. I mean,
Yeah.
it's bringing
Well, that's
us
what I
back.
mean. It's putting more of that on
It's
us
it's
because
putting
it's
us
being
back in the
generated.
picture. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
And to just for
Keeping
leaders
us
and
in the picture.
organizations to acknowledge that. I mean, I agree with what Jennifer was saying. It's like, do we just keep saying, get better, deal with it, become tougher? When you're not working 12 hours a day, be sure to, meditate,
So
whatever the
this is the
case
key.
may be.
So Brenda, this
Yeah.
is the key
So,
question then. This is the key
yeah.
question for your audience, and I think it was in that one comment as well, is that do we just, or a key question, do we just sort of put up with it, or
Yeah.
do we do something about it? Because I think that landscape is extremely stressful, as I said. So what are we going to do about it? And I think it behooves an organization to take that by the lead, do something about it. But it also behooves us to become more articulate about our needs and be more assertive where we need to
Right.
be. So
Speak
that's
up, and now we're coming full circle to what are the soft skills that we need over the next 3 to 5 years. And one of them is speaking up, because what people will do is they'll just leave the company, and if there's anything that can mean ROI, it's retention. And so we continually get in conversations with clients who are requesting to redo, in particular, onboarding training. and
Mhm.
and and this is onboarding training that goes on for 3 or 4 years, not 6 months, not 12 months. And it establishes cohorts and safe spaces, and it goes into psychological safety. These programs are becoming a lot more complex to deal with, that interface between the human and AI, and where it's all going. But it's, in the end, it's a fight for talent. It's a fight to acquire and retain talent in your organization. So that's what we're seeing is driving a lot of the L&D spend, besides the
Well,
AI.
maybe what we're saying is how can we kind of a third way here? How can we, in the most you know, intelligent way, come up with capacity to meet both needs. One is top talent
Yes.
to meet the needs of this landscape of speed and everything, but at the same time, guarantee resilience. And I think the second point about guaranteeing, what am I saying, wellness
Yeah.
in the workplace is to, I think someone just mentioned it. We have a voice. I'm not going to talk politics but the individual. Uh, you mentioned, Brenda, people, your only choices in these organizations that are moving so fast and working us so hard is to
Mhm.
leave. But I think we do have a choice. We can speak up, we can propose things, but this is something that I think has to start now and collectively also, but in a big way because we're going into a year that is everything's happening, right? So where are we in this process? We're being totally swept. Where's that balance? So the third way would be to come up with some very creative solution to that. Um, uh, right. So I think Google figured out a lot of that, but we all know that at Google things have really stepped up. I mean, they're working in a way that they haven't worked in a while, and but they have this balance factor that's really part of the culture. So how do we help develop that culture into a place of wellness? So where our expectations are realistic to the degree that they have to be, because if your workforce is worn out, there are cases worse than this, Brenda, than just leaving. There's some
Yeah,
horrible stories in Silicon
absolutely.
Valley of what's
There,
happened to
yeah, that
employees, and
health
yeah.
deficit for one thing you talk about. Plus, the other thing is roles are being eliminated. And it's like, here, isn't this great? You get to have these three titles, these really long titles, right? People are doing other people's jobs, and AI should allow you to do this and the learning curve and everything. So that's
And this
just
is
another
very
very
disruptive. Very
disruption.
disruptive. We
Yeah,
forget about the disruption in families.
yeah,
Um,
as well.
uh, Husbands and wives, and one's working, and you see this a lot with the startup folks, the men in particular in startups that I work with,
Yeah,
are just way too many hours, and their spouses have had it,
yeah,
and they're committed, but they just don't know what to do. There's no solution, and the workplace is, if you can't handle it, there's the door, because it's a startup. Now that's a unique environment, not I don't,
sure.
a lot of people in startups here, but I think that's a good example of what potentially could happen, because right now everything is about being ahead of the AI curve, whether in usage or in development of a new product. It's a free-for-all right now.
I just want to ask because I'm seeing Deborah making a comment here about the younger generations coming into the workforce right now and really, being into technology and I mean, it's great. It's their life journey is going to be interesting against that backdrop. But when you work with younger people, what are you, especially in the coaching, if you do
Mhm.
that, or certainly as you walk through life with your experience and in your travels and everything, what are
Mhm.
their biggest concerns around the workplace in general?
Well, I think the individual contributor really struggles with trying to find that balance between expectations from their manager and balancing that with their needs. It's pretty much what you're saying, but which we've been talking about. But it's sort of like one classic example is the demand of the workflow is really fast, and you might be in IC intact working with a lot of different teams, and you're providing service to them internally, and you can't do it all. So you have to say no, no, yes, tomorrow, whatever. You have to be very firm and assertive and all that. They don't have those skills.
Right,
They don't know how to do that. So they end up saying yes, 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 and getting into trouble. Or worse, they say no, 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 when all they had to do was say, look, when do you need it? At its core, it's all about assertiveness and being straight and saying, okay, well, I don't know what to do. And some
right,
of that,
right. That makes sense.
it's personal and cultural. But I hear that a
Yes.
lot from the young person who's cutting their teeth. They don't really know much about, they don't know anything about management or anything. They're just trying to survive the system of onslaught of demands.
So not speaking up around bandwidth, about expectations, about prioritizing,
Not
etc.
knowing how, not knowing how. They might be willing, but just don't, they don't know how to
Yeah,
do it. Like they're
interesting.
missing out on
Not
a
knowing how.
bonus. I see this a lot. They miss their bonus, and they go to their boss. What happened? And the boss says, "Well, it's this, this, and this," and
Yeah.
the people you're reporting to are saying, "This is you're not as fast as they'd like you to be."
Hmm.
I'm seeing this a speed issue that comes up a lot.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. It's a lot. This is a quite the quite the lofty conversation, and there's a lot of weight to
A lot of
what we're
weight, yeah.
talking about here.
A lot of weight.
And yeah, I'm not seeing any questions over here. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Joe? I know we're getting a little bit close to time here.
Uh, no, except I just come back to my thoughts on soft skills. I think I've never called them soft skills. I've just called them pretty much, our ability as humans to read between the lines is really our superpower, and that's situational awareness. And it is something we do innately. We do it very quickly if we're attuned to it. So that's where the training is very important. How do you help someone learn to listen better, pay attention more, observe more, read the room, read people, and then show up with remarks that are tied to that audience rather than just me, I want, need, or that's based on speed. We have to get this done. There's no thinking. So leaders are really in a position, in a great role right now to be able to stand above this and say, okay, everyone, let's calm down.
Hmm.
To have that resilient ability to say, okay, there's a lot going on here. We got to calm this down. I remember once working as a waiter years ago in college, and we get so stressed serving. We were near a racetrack, and after yeah, everybody showed up for food and
Yeah.
drink, and suddenly you would hear this bell ring, and it was our cue, kind of Pavlovian, and we'd all have to run back into the kitchen, and he'd have some snack for us there, and he literally would take everybody off the floor. The whole restaurant was empty. No one, that is to say, staff was gone. But really just 5 minutes, less, 3 minutes. You run back, he would have some weird stack that he had the chef prepare for us, a little food or something. So, all right, let's eat it together. Ready, one, two, three, we eat it, and we go back out. And
Interesting.
what that did was that cut the stress. He was first point, he was conscious of our need to
Hmm.
not get overstressed. And secondly, he did something about it. And I hope
Yeah.
that that's what we can all do as L&D leaders, that we can remind our wherever we're working that somebody has to take charge and stop the motion, stop the forward motion. I don't care how important. I know we got to get to market. I know we need to get there yesterday. I know you don't agree with me. Let's just stop for a minute. And it's not about taking an hour break. It's about moving in a different direction. Uh, yeah, I think Manjul made a comment down here too.
But, go ahead. You can read that and
Uh,
or
yeah,
let me
let's see.
know.
I'm not sure it's the last one. Yeah, many of these human programs are required as online or micro lessons in global companies. How do we inculcate the culture aspect into these programs between standardization and differentiation? Uh, inculcate's a big word. I mean, it's hard to inculcate anything anywhere. But I think, and I'm not sure, Manjul, if you could comment a little bit further on that, what you mean by micro lessons, that would help me to answer this question. I have a thought, but I'm not sure I know what you mean. What do you mean by micro lessons? See if it says anything below. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say that you when you are trying to teach some of these top skills, the experiential learning thing is there anything specific? There's two things that we're getting requests for, of course, is experiential learning. The other one is storytelling. So I just wonder, with the kind of things that we're talking about, the hard skills slash soft skills, how important is storytelling as a vehicle to get the light
Okay.
bulb to go on, right?
Right. And I'm
And
going to
she
come
and
back.
she clarifies.
Yeah,
Oh
hold,
yeah, so
hold.
micro learning. Oh, she's saying, yeah, a lot of these people work with online learning. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great question. Yeah.
But I'm still a little unclear on the standardization and differentiation in this context.
Okay.
So if you can follow up with that one, Manjul, then I think we have something to discuss.
Okay.
Um, what do you mean by that in this context of micro learning online programs? Okay. As to Brenda's comment about storytelling, it's everything, but it's not as always as grandiose as a story.
Yeah.
It's metaphorical thinking is what I call it. It's helping anyone, any audience, giving them an alternative explanation for anything we say at any time.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
it could be as simple as, well, for example, Joe, it's like when, you lose your key, or you could take the second law of thermodynamics or whatever and say, okay, this is the way that works. Well, Joe, it's like this. So like, as if, examples, whatever. But then it could be a story. Joe, one time I was driving my car in Silicon Valley, and um, the temptation is always to think that storytelling is part of a longer speech. It's a TED talk. It's this thing that's
Hmm.
all encompassing. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
It should
Yeah.
be very much a part of our habit, our habitual speaking, to reframe in more simple terms or more complex terms, depending on the audience, for various reasons, credibility, for as one
Context, for sure.
one utilitarian motive, but then the other one is just for accessibility. The people I work with are always working cross functionally. So if you're talking tech jargon and tech speak to marketing, you just don't build that credibility and that likability that builds network and friendship and so on in the
Hmm.
bigger sense, but also gets the work done faster. There's nothing like it when someone says, "Oh, that's what you're saying." I used to do this at Google a lot because I don't speak tech. And our Wednesday meetings, I would throw a word at them that I didn't understand, and I'd have the 25 engineers online in this AI project. And it's all right, you guys. The first person to be able to say that word in layman's terms gets, Joe's faster support this week. So we would joke about that. Um, now, okay. Well, anyway, as far as
Yeah. It's a good one.
institutionalizing, these programs, micro learning and stuff, I think the trick is really in the culture. I mean, what am I saying? We sign on to places that have a cult. When we go to look for a job, one of the things sometimes we fail to do because we need a job is we don't look at the culture where we're going into. So there's some places where I just don't want to work, honestly. There's sometimes I have to work places I don't want to work. So in other words, I like to pick the places that have a lot of learning opportunities, online learning, micro learning, coaching, everything. I look for those places, and I like to work for those places because it's not an uphill battle. Um, Yes, I think Lisa, I agree with that. And uh, yes, and I'm so happy to hear someone using AI to personalize learning experience. Um,
That is
lots of
prescriptive.
beautiful ways to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and managers can customize how they coach behavior versus the current day where, there's an epidemic of this is the way. I think that's what it says.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, right. Brilliant comments. And we're hitting
Yeah.
our wrap up.
I feel like we're just getting going and we're
Yeah,
at
it's a shame.
the
It's a shame.
hour. So
Yeah.
first of all, Joe, thank you so much. Always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to work with you and always
Mm.
learn so much. And I want to thank everybody in our audience for chiming in, joining us today. And we really appreciate it. And hopefully folks got something out of this and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you,
Hopefully
Brenda.
you
This was
have.
great.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay. Bye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.